Some wounds don't bleed, they echo, and the loudest echoes come from the people who knew exactly where to strike. What if the deepest pain you ever felt didn't come from a breakup, a stranger, or even a bully at school, but from the very people who shared your home, your blood, and your childhood? My friends, these 7 family betrayals cut the deepest. Don't ignore them, because when betrayal wears a familiar face, it doesn't just break your heart. It breaks your blueprint for love, trust, and belonging. And that's why we need to talk about this today. Hey folks, imagine this. You're in a house made of glass and everyone inside is throwing stones. You're told to smile through the cracks, to act like nothing is breaking, even as shards of love, loyalty, and trust slice through your soul. That's what it feels like when family betrays you, not all at once, but piece by piece. One moment it's a joke at your expense, the next it's silence when you needed someone to speak up. And just like that, your safe space becomes a war zone disguised as tradition. We've all heard the saying, blood is thicker than water. But here's the truth, no one tells you. That's not the full quote. The original phrase is, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, which means chosen bonds, the ones built on truth, loyalty, and respect, are stronger than those formed by DNA alone. Mind blown, right? We've been taught the lie that family always comes first. But folks, what if putting them first meant putting yourself last? What if keeping the peace was just another way of keeping yourself small? See, betrayal from family doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. It shows up in comparison, in neglect, in emotional abandonment disguised as tough love. You're told you're too sensitive, too distant, too dramatic. You start to question your own memory, your own worth, your own mind. And that's when the real damage begins, not outside, but inside. As Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And today I want to help you stop reacting in silence and start standing in truth. Let's be real for a moment. Family should have been your first fortress, not your first battlefield. And I'm not here to tell you to hate, to cut everyone off, or to live in anger. That's not Stoicism. No, Stoicism is about clarity. It's about facing the raw truth without flinching, setting boundaries without guilt, and loving yourself enough to walk away from what wounds you, even if it shares your last name. You didn't deserve the betrayal, but you do deserve the healing. And healing starts with awareness. That's what this video is for, to shine light on the kinds of betrayal we're taught to ignore, to laugh off, or worst of all, to accept as normal. These aren't small things. They're silent soul wounds that shape your future if you don't face them. But good news, you're here now, and that means the healing has already begun. So my friends, write this in the comments right now. I choose peace. That's your first step. That's your statement to the world and to yourself. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me, because what's coming next, it might just set you free. Number 1, the silent comparison that crushed you. Comparison is the thief of joy, but in families, it often wears a smile and carries your last name. You weren't just being raised, you were being measured, not by your own growth, but against the quiet pedestal someone else was placed on. You didn't even know you were in a race until you realized you were always losing. Folks, the most painful kind of betrayal isn't loud or violent. Sometimes it comes through loving eyes that are constantly looking past you, toward someone else. It's not what they said, it's what they didn't. It's the way your achievements were met with polite claps, while theirs earned standing ovations. It's the way your struggles were framed as weaknesses, but theirs were painted as noble battles. Imagine two flowers growing in the same garden. One gets sunlight, daily water, and praise for blooming. The other gets shade, neglect, and is told to just be more like your sibling. That flower doesn't just wilt, it starts to believe it's defective. And here's the kicker, it wasn't the flower's fault. It was the gardener playing favorites all along. This is the betrayal of silent comparison, the kind that doesn't leave visible bruises, but carves lifelong insecurities into your identity. And if you're thinking, was it really betrayal? Maybe I just wasn't good enough. My friend, that's what they want you to believe, that the fault was in you, that your light just wasn't bright enough. But the truth is, it was always bright. You were just placed in the wrong corner of the room, while they kept turning the spotlight elsewhere. Stoic philosophy doesn't ask us to resent others for what they received. It asks us to see clearly what was denied to us and to stop blaming ourselves for someone else's blindness. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You couldn't control how your family divided affection, but you can control what you believe about yourself from this point forward. But let's get honest here. It's not easy to let go of these wounds. Why? Because comparison wasn't just something you endured, it became a voice in your head. The same voice that whispers, "You're not as good," every time you win. The same voice that says, "Don't try too hard, you'll never be their favorite anyway." And that voice, folks, is not your truth, it's your programming. You were trained to believe love must be earned, and earned in competition. But real love, real connection, doesn't need you to outperform someone. It only needs you to be yourself. And if you were constantly compared, it's not because you lacked worth, it's because someone else lacked awareness. They didn't see you clearly. But that doesn't mean you weren't worth seeing. You may ask, so what do I do now? How do I stop being haunted by this invisible measuring stick? Here's how. You break the stick. You stop playing a game you never agreed to. You stop shrinking when someone else is praised. And you start defining yourself by your own growth, your own effort, your own voice. This isn't about bitterness, it's about boundaries. It's about choosing to rise above the silent rankings that were never fair to begin with. Because here's the secret they don't want you to know. The sibling you were compared to. They probably felt it too. Maybe in a different way, maybe in their own shadows. Comparison doesn't just harm the less favored, it poisons the whole garden. But you have the power to heal, to rise, and to stop the cycle. So write this in the comments right now. I am done competing. Say it for your past self, the one who was always trying to be enough. Say it for your future self, the one who's going to shine without waiting for permission. Say it for the world, to show that love, growth, and identity are not a contest. You're not here to be better than anyone. You're here to be fully you. And stay with me, because what's coming next? It's the betrayal we often laugh off, until we realize it's been bleeding us dry. Number 2, when they only love you if you conform. If love comes with conditions, it's not love. It's control in disguise. Let me ask you something, my friends. Have you ever felt like you were only accepted when you were easy to understand? When you said the right things, believed the same things, acted how they expected? But the moment you questioned the script, suddenly you were difficult, rebellious, or selfish. That's not love. That's performance-based acceptance wrapped up in a family photo. And this kind of betrayal, it doesn't just hurt, it distorts who you believe you're allowed to become. Imagine being handed a costume at birth. They said, "This is who you are. This is how we do things in this family." And at first, you wear it proudly. You think it's love. You think it's belonging. But as you grow older, something inside you itches. The costume feels tight, wrong, fake. You try to take it off, but the moment you do, the applause stops. The hugs feel colder, the smiles suddenly strained. That's when you realize you weren't loved for who you are. You were loved for how well you played the role. And folks, let's get this straight. That's not your failure. That's theirs. Because real love doesn't ask you to shrink. It doesn't require silence to feel safe. It doesn't demand that you sacrifice your truth just to avoid their discomfort. But that's what happens in too many families. The moment you grow, you become a threat to the version of you they can control. You might hear things like, "You've changed," or "That's not how we do things." But what they really mean is, "You're no longer convenient." And here's where the lie starts creeping in. You begin to wonder, am I being selfish? Am I wrong for wanting different things? And that's exactly how they keep you stuck, in guilt, in fear, in the constant need to earn your place by performing. But let's break that illusion right now. Stoicism teaches us that our peace comes not from external approval, but internal alignment. As Epictetus said, know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly. You were not born to be a mirror for their values. You were born to be a flame, to light your own path, and anyone who only embraces you when you hide your light, they're not protecting you. They're protecting their illusion of control. This betrayal is subtle because it comes dressed in tradition, culture, religion, and generational patterns. You're told, this is just how things are. But listen carefully. Just because something is common doesn't make it healthy. Just because something has been done for years doesn't mean it deserves another minute of your peace. And yes, it's going to feel hard to break away. Of course it will. You're not just walking away from a behavior, you're walking away from a belief system that taught you love must be earned by obedience. That taught you self-betrayal is honorable if it keeps the family comfortable. But comfort at the cost of authenticity isn't love. It's imprisonment. You may be asking, what happens if I step out of line? What if I stop pretending? Well, maybe some doors close. Maybe some people fall silent, but you know what opens. Your life, your voice, your clarity. And that, my friends, is worth every ounce of discomfort. Because pretending is exhausting, performing is soul-crushing, and living a lie to maintain fake peace is the most dangerous betrayal of all, the one you do to yourself. So let me say this to you with full fire. You do not have to agree with everything they say to be worthy of love. You do not have to fit in to belong. And you sure as hell don't have to betray yourself just to make them feel better. The ones who truly love you will adapt. The ones who don't, they were never loving you, just the version of you they could mold. Write this in the comments right now. I won't shrink to fit. Say it like you mean it. Say it for the times you bit your tongue. Say it for the real you, the one that's been buried under layers of shoulds and musts. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world around you that you are done performing for love. From this moment on, you speak, you breathe, you live, unfiltered, unapologetic, and unafraid. And stay with me, because up next, we're talking about the betrayal that hides in laughter, the one that exposes your wounds in front of a crowd and calls it a joke. Number 3, turning your pain into family gossip. The deepest betrayals aren't the secrets they keep, but the ones they share that were never theirs to tell. Let me ask you something, my friends. Have you ever confided in someone you trusted, only to find your pain passed around like party talk? Not by strangers, not by enemies, but by your own family. That's not a misunderstanding. That's betrayal wearing the mask of harmless conversation. And when it comes from someone who once wiped your tears, who promised to keep your secrets safe, it cuts deeper than you thought words ever could. Imagine this. You hand someone a delicate glass sculpture you spent years building. Your story, your struggles, your scars. You trust them to hold it gently. But instead, they toss it into the middle of the room and let others laugh at the cracks. That's what it feels like when your pain becomes gossip. Not just betrayal, but public exposure of private wounds. The worst part? You weren't even in the room to defend yourself. They say things like, "I was just concerned," or "I didn't mean it like that." But folks, let's not sugarcoat it. They weren't sharing to protect you. They were sharing to elevate themselves, to feel important, to play the hero in your story while making you the broken character. It's not concern when it's done behind your back. It's not love when it costs you your dignity. You might be asking, but why would someone who says they love me do that? Because gossip, in its ugliest form, isn't about communication. It's about control. It's about rewriting your narrative before you can tell it yourself. It's about framing your flaws in a way that makes them look stronger, wiser, or more loyal than they actually were. They use your storms to build their umbrellas. And that's psychological theft. Now let's talk about how this betrayal gets minimized. You're told you're being dramatic, that you're overreacting, that it was just a joke or just a little venting. But let me break this lie right now. Sharing someone's pain without their permission is emotional violence, even if it's wrapped in a laugh. As Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." You don't need to match their behavior, but you must recognize it for what it is. And the damage goes further than embarrassment. This kind of betrayal trains you to stay silent. It convinces you that vulnerability is dangerous, that you have to wear armor around the people who should be your softest place to fall. It teaches you to bottle it up, to play strong, to smile even when your heart is shattered, because last time you opened up, they served your soul on a silver platter for others to dissect. But here's what Stoicism teaches us. We can't control what others say, but we can control who gets access to our truth. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your struggle. Not everyone deserves to hold your story, especially not the ones who can't carry it with care. So, what do you do when you realize your pain has been turned into entertainment? You stop offering your silence as a reward. You stop giving away your story like a free sample. You start choosing people who honor your words, who protect your voice when you're not in the room, who know that trust is sacred, not transactional. And yes, it might mean cutting emotional ties. It might mean fewer people at the family dinner, but better a small circle of truth than a large audience of betrayal. Your dignity isn't disposable. Your experiences aren't a punchline. You are not here to be discussed. You are here to be respected. So write this in the comments right now. My story is mine. Say it like you're reclaiming every word they twisted. Say it like your voice matters, because it does. Let the world know that from this point forward, your vulnerability is earned, not assumed. And anyone who turns your pain into gossip, they just lost access to the best parts of you. Stay with me, folks, because next, we're diving into a betrayal that wears a smile and sounds like praise, but is really just poison in disguise. Number 4, using your struggles to elevate themselves. Some people don't want to help you heal. They want to stay close enough to your pain to look like the strong one. My friends, this one stings because it's sneaky. It doesn't show up with malice or open cruelty. No, it shows up wrapped in concern, in soft voices, in arms that comforted you just enough to claim credit, but never long enough to actually carry you. This is the betrayal of someone who stands next to your darkness, not to pull you out, but to make themselves look like the light. Ever had a moment where you broke down, let the mask fall, shared something deeply painful, and later heard your own story told back to you by someone else, only this time they were the savior, the wise one, the rock who supported the broken version of you? That's not love. That's ego dressed as compassion. That's someone building a throne on your trauma, sitting above you while pretending they're helping you stand. Imagine this. You're drowning in a river, reaching for a hand. They reach back, but instead of pulling you out, they pose for a picture. They want to be seen as the rescuer more than they want to rescue. And when you finally swim to shore, they're already telling everyone how hard they fought to keep you afloat, even though you saved yourself. That, folks, is exploitation of your pain, and it happens in families more than we like to admit. And here's the twisted part. It works because it feels like love. At first, you're vulnerable, you're hurting, and someone shows up. You're grateful, you trust. But slowly, you realize their help comes with strings. Subtle power plays, stories shared without permission, gentle reminders of how much they've done for you, how much worse off you'd be without them. And suddenly, your pain doesn't feel like something that happened to you. It feels like something they own. You may ask, but is it really betrayal? They were there for me? Yes, because being there physically doesn't mean they were there with the right intentions. If they needed you broken to feel whole, that's not love, that's control. And deep down, you probably knew. You just didn't want to believe someone so close could use your vulnerability as a platform. Stoicism pulls the curtain back on this behavior with brutal clarity. As Epictetus taught, it is not he who gives abuse or blows who insults, but the view we take of these things as insulting. In other words, don't just look at what they did. Look at how they framed it. Look at how they retell it. Look at whether your pain is theirs to grow from or theirs to show off. And this betrayal runs deep, because now you don't know who to trust. You start second-guessing every time someone offers to listen. You wonder, are they here for me or for the image of being the one who saved me? That kind of confusion can shut you down for years. It can make you hyper-independent, unwilling to lean on anyone, even the people who actually care. But hear me, my friend, your pain is not a prop. Your struggle is not a spotlight for someone else's performance. You are not a background character in someone else's story of self-importance. And just because they were there in the storm doesn't mean they were your shelter. So what do you do when you realize someone's been standing on your pain to lift themselves higher? You reclaim your story. You strip away their narrative. You remind yourself and them that you were never powerless. That yes, you needed help, but it was your strength that carried you through. And anyone who tries to take credit for your survival doesn't deserve access to your healing. Write this in the comments right now. I own my story. Say it like you're taking back every moment someone tried to rewrite your struggle to fit their ego. Say it like the author of your own life, because that's exactly who you are. No one gets to use your pain as a podium. No one gets to decorate themselves with your scars. And stay with me, because what's coming next is a betrayal you probably didn't even realize was betrayal at all, until they chose the outsiders over you. Number 5. Siding with outsiders against you. The knife that hurts most isn't the one strangers throw, it's the one your own blood hands to them. There's a specific kind of heartbreak that doesn't come from enemies. It comes from family standing with your enemies. When those who should have stood beside you stood against you instead. They didn't have your back. They had an audience. And to them, looking neutral or likable in front of others was more important than protecting you. Imagine being in a storm, completely exposed, and the one person you trusted is standing under an umbrella with the very people who caused the storm. They glance back and shrug. Don't take it personally, but you do. Because how could you not? When someone who knows your heart still chooses to question your intentions just to keep their reputation squeaky clean, that's betrayal, plain and brutal. And let's be real, this one messes with your head. You start wondering, maybe I'm too much, maybe I was wrong. No, my friend, you were just alone when you should have been defended, and they stayed quiet, not because you were wrong, but because your truth made them uncomfortable. Stoic wisdom clears the fog here. Marcus Aurelius said, "The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane." When your family joins the crowd instead of standing for what's right, it's not your failure. It's their fear talking, their cowardice, their need to keep peace with outsiders while letting you burn inside. But don't let their silence make you doubt your voice. Don't let their betrayal teach you to abandon yourself just to keep people close. You deserve relationships built on truth, not image, on loyalty, not convenience. So write this in the comments right now. I stand for me. Say it like a shield. Say it for the moments you were left to fight alone. Say it because from this moment forward, you are your own defender. Let them pick their sides. You pick your peace and stay with me, because what's coming next is even quieter, but it carves the deepest scar of all, when they leave you emotionally abandoned in your darkest hour. Number 6, emotional abandonment when you needed them most. They didn't break you with words. They broke you with silence when your world was falling apart. My friends, some betrayals don't explode. They echo, not because someone lashed out, but because they vanished when you needed them the most. No fight, no drama, just empty space where comfort should have lived. That's the cruelty of emotional abandonment. It doesn't shout, it withholds. Imagine standing in the middle of a burning building, screaming for help, and watching your sibling walk by the window without flinching. No knock, no call, not even a glance. They weren't busy, they weren't lost. They just didn't choose you when it mattered. And that's the kind of wound that doesn't bleed, it lingers. You start telling yourself, maybe I was too much, maybe they didn't know what to say. But deep down, you know better. They knew. They saw the pain in your eyes. They just chose comfort over compassion. And that, folks, is abandonment disguised as indifference. This betrayal hits hardest because it's invisible. You can't explain it to others without sounding petty. They didn't check in doesn't sound like trauma, but when silence becomes the loudest response to your suffering, it teaches you something toxic, that your pain isn't worth showing up for. But Stoicism lifts us out of that lie. As Seneca said, we suffer more in imagination than in reality, which means We suffer more in the meaning we attach to others' inaction than the act itself. Their absence is not proof of your unworthiness. It's proof of their emotional limitation. So what do you do when they don't show up for you? You stop begging for presents from the emotionally absent. You stop waiting by a door they won't open. And instead, you walk through your own, into healing, into peace, into people who do show up without being asked. Write this in the comments right now. I release who left. Say it for the nights you cried alone. Say it for the texts you never got back. Say it because your healing deserves better than someone's silence. And stay with me, because next, we're digging into the quiet prison of being forced into a role you never chose, the family mask you were never meant to wear. Number 7, the family role you never chose. They didn't ask who you were. They told you who you had to be and dared you to disappoint them. Let's be real, my friends. Some of us weren't born into families. We were born into jobs, assigned roles, expectations, invisible contracts we never signed. You weren't the child. You were the fixer, the peacemaker, the emotional sponge, the one who always had to be the bigger person, not because you wanted to, but because they needed you to carry the weight they refused to lift. Imagine walking into a room and being handed a mask, and every time you try to take it off, someone says, "That's not like you," or "You've changed." But you never got to be you in the first place. You were praised only when you played the part, smiled through pain, solved their mess, swallowed your truth. And when you finally tried to say no, you were labeled cold, selfish, ungrateful. But here's what no one tells you. Sacrificing yourself for a role isn't noble. It's self-abandonment. You didn't disappoint them. You just stopped playing the character they created for their own comfort. And let's not sugarcoat it. It's hard to walk away from a script you've memorized since childhood. It feels like rebellion, like betrayal. But the real betrayal is betraying yourself just to keep playing along. Stoicism reminds us, as Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. That means stop asking who they want you to be and start becoming who you already are. Because here's the truth. Their approval was built on your obedience, but your peace, that's built on your authenticity. Write this in the comments right now. I'm done performing. Say it for the role you never asked for. Say it for the version of you that's been buried under family expectations. Say it because you don't owe anyone a costume to be worthy of love. And if this message hit you deep, don't scroll away. Like this video. Subscribe. Share it. Let this be the day you stop rehearsing and start living. The show is over, my friend, and you're finally stepping into the truth.